Career Services, and I will be the moderator for this webinar. We are very pleased to share with you this evening 4 wonderful career stories from Walden students and alumni. Before we get started, I'd like to briefly introduce you to our Career Services Center team. Our Associate Director, Dina Berggren, and on the top left, then myself, then Angie Lira, our Senior Career Services Advisor, who worked diligently developing this webinar in collaboration with Nicoles Story, and then Denise Pranke, our other career advisor. Our mission is to educate, coach, and advise our learners to proactively manage their careers. We all work full-time out of the Minneapolis office. It's a beautiful 70-degree day evening. It's great here. It doesn't snow year-round, contrary to popular belief. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our presenter, as well as the students and alumni sharing their stories on this webinar. So as I mentioned, Nicoles Story is our Career Services Advisor who will be our main presenter today. And she is bilingual in English and Spanish, and also she is our webinar coordinator, troubleshooter, and optimal resume system manager. I'd also like to introduce those students and alumni who've been kind enough to share their stories with us this evening. And so 2 stories are going to be stories that we will be sharing on their behalf because they were unable to join us for this live webinar. And then we have 2 wonderful panelists who have been able to join us in person. And so we will be sharing the story of Dania Thomas, who recently joined the Center for Disease Control as a fellow. She is doing epidemiology research, and she is currently a PhD in public health student here at Walden with a specialization in epidemiology. And then we have with us in person Jennifer Farinella, who is the Office of Military Services team lead here at Walden, and she earned her master's in public policy and administration in 2014. Nicole and I work with Jennifer here in the Walden, Minneapolis office. She's very actively involved in our community building committee, and she did a terrific job rebranding herself here at Walden to rise from one position to a position of much greater responsibility. She recently presented at a regional NACADA conference, which stands for, basically it's the National Academic Advising Association, and she will be presenting at their national conference this October. So we're glad to have Jennifer here with us. And then in addition to those 2 stories, we will be sharing the story of Betsy List, who is an assistant professor in the School of Nursing at Xavier University. That is a new role for Betsy, and so we're going to talk about her landing that new position. And she graduated with her PhD in public health and epidemiology in 2014. And then in person, we're pleased to welcome Krista Larson, who is an Engineering Initiative Facilities Project Manager at the University of Wyoming. Krista is a senior executive with extensive experience overseeing multi-million-dollar complex construction projects. After earning her DBA in 2013, she landed her new position as the Facilities Project Manager at the University of Wyoming. And it's interesting because we were speaking before the webinar, and Krista likes to stretch herself quite a bit. So not only is she a marathon runner, but she also completed her doc study, which won an award from Walden in an area that wasn't related to her past career of facilities project management, but instead she worked on a doc study that involved Medicaid. So it's a fascinating story. So we're so glad to be able to share these with you today. So before we get started speaking to our panelists, we want to ask you, our audience, what prompted you to join us today? So if you can type in your answers, what caught your eye about this webinar? What do you hope to gain from it? So some of you are introducing yourselves in the webinar, so it's nice to see so many here. So if you can type in the questions box, what prompted you to join us today? So to get some direction, okay? Okay, so career goals, how to market yourself after obtaining a master's degree in nursing. I love stories of success. I'm right there with you.
Oh, great.
To know more about career services, how to build a career. I was invited. Tips for pursuing a career with an FNP degree, looking at a new career path and selling myself better, direction to changing a job, branding, hear stories of encouragement and success, marketing myself, career transition possibilities, learn from other people's stories, how to advance in my career. I joined for balance and career progression. How to market my new degree, hoping to learn about becoming more competitive, reframe my resume for a new career path, craft my story that outlines my accomplishments and failures and a balanced outlook on life, to know more how to present myself in public, networking and opportunities to affect positive change in my community. What a great list. That's terrific. I love that last one. It reflects our mission of positive social change. So thank you. Okay. So with that, we are now going to give you an example of an interview in progress. Actually, 2 interviews in progress. Okay, so we're going to give you an example, and what we want you to do is listen carefully for what's memorable about these 2 different interviews.
Hi, Lisa. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a creative person, a good communicator, team player, and I have a very strong work ethic. So that's interview 1. This is interview 2. So Nicole, welcome to the interview. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. So tell us about yourself.
Sure, Lisa, thank you. Well, I understand that flexibility and adaptability are important skills for this position, as well as the ability to work well with people from diverse backgrounds and cultures. So I have a little story about my career. In the mid-90s, I quit my full-time job to go learn Spanish in Mexico. And while 6 months of learning Spanish kind of turned into 12 years, I got married and started a family. And during my time in Mexico, I mastered the language. I landed a position at a local university teaching business English to international trade majors. And I started my own business, all while raising 2 children. So my experience living abroad was probably my best teaching experience of all time, teaching and learning experience. It taught me patience and tolerance and a strong appreciation for other cultures, as well as my own culture. So my bilingual and bicultural skills were also a key factor in landing my current position with Walden and its global presence.
Terrific. Now, considering those 2 examples, what was memorable about the first answer? Can you type it in the questions box? It was pretty short, so what did you get out of that answer? Okay, nothing much. Boy, I love that frankness. That's great. Okay, short and succinct, generic, strong work ethic. It was standard, not detailed. It was brief and to the point. Not to offend anyone, but the southern drawl and lack of energy. Okay, well, I was faking that just to differentiate my voice, so I'll take that. Okay, so nothing much, self-centered. Oh, okay, self-centered. All right, not memorable. Okay, so you all, you're right on point. Yes, it wasn't very memorable, but I think, you have to think in an interview situation, people get really nervous. Mm-hmm. And, tell me about yourself. That is a typical answer that people will give. They'll just give that generic, I'm very organized, or, they'll give a few adjectives about themselves, and that'll be the end of the answer. So not very memorable, you're right. Okay, so now, what was memorable about the second answer, about living in Mexico and other things that were mentioned? Great. The flow of her life into a storyline, nice linking of needed job skills to a personal story to show its impact. She attached details to the job qualifications. She made it personal yet infused her professional aspirations. She related her life experience to the job qualifications and how she went from one thing to another. She provided more details and experience, drew on the requirements for the job and support with experience. Strong skills, not bragging, but to the point, was interesting, confident, and expressive, and very specific. Way to go, Nicole. Nice job.
Thank you all. You guys are very articulate yourselves. I think you get the point. Great.
Okay, terrific.
Good job.
Okay, so now we're going to go to our agenda items. And so they are discovering the power of storytelling for career advancement, learning strategies for creating your own career story, and then hearing our wonderful stories from our students and alumni. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Nicole.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so research conducted by psychologists and neurologists and neuroscientists really tell us that stories form the basis of how humans think. And hopefully we did a good job in exemplifying that right now in our interview role modeling. So how humans think, how they organize and remember information. So in addition to strengthening your brand with your audience, which I know many of you joined the webinar today for, about marketing yourself and your career, it's a great strategy for also self-knowledge and self-assessment and really getting to know your own skills and how to portray those in a storytelling context. And so we also realize that themes are memorable. Stories are powerful because they are memorable. People rarely remember series of facts or data or statistics. A Stanford research study showed that statistics alone have a retention rate of only 5 to 10%, but when coupled with anecdotes, the retention rate rises to 65 to 70%. So when details are included in the story, we remember the core of the story or the theme, which is kind of what we're focusing on today with our speakers. Each speaker will have a theme, each career story, a theme, and sort of a central message. So your theme should come from your accomplishments, and your theme will be unique to your own experiences. So you want to think, what is the theme of your own career story? And again, there are probably many different angles you can take. I just happened to pick the one from Mexico, but probably, I could pick other ones as well. And I tried to adapt it, of course, as many of you mentioned, to the skills of the job that they were requiring. So the community educator, maybe with a passion for public health, a brilliant strategist with a knack for relationship building and sales, the leader who inspires her teammates and her passion for student success. So here's a slide that maybe will help you come up with a theme of your story in a career context. When thinking about what story to share, ask yourself some of these questions. How has your degree or how is your degree currently changing your career? Did your networking efforts lead to a new career opportunity? What about your volunteering or your social change mission? How did it help you to build skills and relationships? How are you sharing your passions with others and your knowledge? Or did you recently gain a new job or a promotion? So again, what is that theme or message you would like to convey to your audience? So keeping that in mind. Okay, the elements of a story. According to the writer Robert McKee, essentially a story expresses how and why life changes. And there are several keys to telling that great story, according to Mr. McGee. First, you need a clear purpose. So again, talking about that message and the theme, remember that in a job search, the purpose of storytelling is to communicate your abilities as a candidate. And that's, again, what I tried to do with the Mexico story. Next, you need to set the stage. So make sure you give a brief description of the circumstances and make sure you put, the listener or the reader in the context or in the setting, so they really understand, the situation that you are living or experiencing. A story usually begins with sometimes a conflict or challenge, not always, but when we coach here on accomplishment statements for the resume, we use the formula challenge, action, and result. So many times if there's a challenge we all face or overcome in life and in our professional daily work, we always have challenges. So remember that to engage your audience with some type of incident or conflict or challenge, it is important to show how you can face challenge and overcome that as well. And it also intrigues the audience and they can relate to it. So you're connecting with your audience. The most important element for job seekers, of course, is achievement. You are the protagonist of your own story, so be ready to tell your audience how you overcame adversity, and highlight your achievements, your actions, your initiatives to complete your story with really a memorable, happy ending. And the key to a good story is also pacing. A good story has a clear beginning, an ending, and a connection to the listener or viewer. In an interview setting, this can include a segue back to the question or topic at hand. So we thought those tips were very important for sharing the story. And then there are many, many ways that you can, and places that you can tell your career story, and we've highlighted some of them, the main ones here in a career context, you know, whether it's writing or speaking or in an interview, on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, through an e-portfolio. And quite a few of these we're actually our speakers and our career stories that we're sharing from Walden students and alums really highlight some of these places, you know, interviewing and e-portfolio and LinkedIn profile. So you can integrate parts of your story throughout this job search process. You know, don't forget to add your passions and accomplishments to your cover letter and resume. Really share those in the interview context. Write about your research, or if you're a doctoral student, your doctoral research. What are your research passions in a blog? Highlight your nonprofit or social change work on your LinkedIn profile. You can conduct informational interviews, which are informal interviews about career paths and getting advice from other professionals. And that way you can become really comfortable communicating your career story. Craft a catchy elevator pitch. You know, think about your audience when you are attending conferences or networking events. And I think you all get the idea. Use your e-portfolio to communicate your accomplishments to employers, you know, even when you're not present. So when you leave that interview and your e-portfolio or the link, you share it with them before or after, you still have a presence and make an impact with the interview.
Nicole, a question here. Can you describe what an e-portfolio is?
Oh, great. So yes, absolutely. So there's two types of portfolios. I mean, there's various types of portfolios, but there's a tangible one that you would have in a binder. But the newer types of portfolios are electronic portfolios, and that's what the E stands for. And Career Services has an optimal resume system on our website that has an e-portfolio builder module. So we would encourage you to explore our website. And actually on today's webinar, we're going to have a brief screenshot of Jennifer Farinella's. She actually displayed her e-portfolio in the website builder. So it's a very robust system, Optimal Resume. You want to make sure you check it out. And it's really a great way to showcase your accomplishments, any awards, some examples of your academic accomplishments, your writing samples, PowerPoints, awards, etc., in a visual way to sell yourself to employers.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share Danias' story. So I met Dania recently at our Atlanta residency this spring, and unfortunately she was unable to join us for the live webinar, but she kindly agreed that, and very enthusiastically so, to share her story. So basically, when I met her, she had just landed her dream position as a fellow at the Center for Disease Control, and she was so excited about it. And so I asked her to explain how that process had gone for her, and she said that that was her dream job, and she had submitted actually at least 50 applications over a 3-year period. So in her case, persistence really paid off. And she was contacted for a phone interview for a position to conduct microbiology testing for STDs. And during the interview, Dania talked about Walden's global perspective and her passion for public health. And they asked what was her particular area of interest, and she said that she was very excited about HIV and AIDS research because her home country is Jamaica, and that's a very large health problem there. So basically, she said she was disappointed because actually she was not hired for that position, though the second interviewer on the call to her had shown a great interest in her qualifications and really asked her about Walden and her interest in public health. So that second interviewer ended up being so impressed that he contacted her a month later, and she was offered another public health fellowship at the Center for Disease Control. And so basically, after I returned from Atlanta, I typed up Danias' story and I posted it on our Career Services Center blog. When we hear a success story from a student, we'll write up the story and we'll run it by the student to make sure that we have the facts accurate and that they're comfortable sharing the information contained in the story, and then we'll post it on our blog. Well, apparently, Dania circulated the blog story to people in her network. And so one of her cousins found the blog story and shared it on social media. And as a result of that, Dania was contacted by a USAID global health recruiter and invited to speak about her career success as a single mother at a local event in Atlanta. So from all this, Dania, in addition to her budding public health career with the Center for Disease Control, has decided to start her own motivational speaking business. So, and all this from sharing her story with us and then our writing it up on our blog. So her story really shows the power of storytelling, because I remember talking to her at the residency, and she said, you know, I didn't get that interview, but the job from the first interview, but I knew that I had done really well, because that second interviewer, not the lead interviewer with the main decision-making authority, but that second interviewer, he really took an interest in asking me more questions, telling me about Walden, you know, why are you so interested in public health? What's your area of focus for public health? Why HIV/AIDS research? So she knew that she had done a really fantastic interview. That job just wasn't quite the right fit. And so she was ecstatic when that interviewer, the second interviewer, contacted her a month later for a position that he had. And so, you know, the themes in her story, she communicated Walden's mission and the global perspective of having people from all over the world in her classes. She shared her passion for, you know, HIV/AIDS, and shared the background that she was from Jamaica, where that is a really large public health problem, and really left a memorable impression on that interviewer, which led to her success after 50 applications. So we're really pleased, and we appreciated so much hearing Danias' story. And as a follow-up to that, one of our career advisors is going to be traveling to the next Atlanta residency and meeting with Dania again. So hopefully we'll be sharing her a video of her story on our Career Services YouTube channel. So we're excited about that. So with that, I am now going to interview a terrific colleague with us this evening, Jennifer Farinella, who is going to share her career story. Jennifer?
Hi, thank you. So as Lisa said, my name is Jennifer Farinella, and I am currently the Military Service Specialist team lead at Walden University. And what that means is that I am an advocate at the university for men, women, and children who are involved in the service or who have family members serving in the service and that are pursuing degrees at Walden. My story started, I was an undergraduate student. I got my political science degree. I'd always wanted to help people through a series of events. I kind of found myself in the healthcare world as an administrative assistant, which is not really where I wanted to be. And I started pursuing opportunities and looking at other positions, and one had opened up at Walden as an administrative role. And I had also wanted to pursue a career in teaching, and so Walden seemed like a good place to kind of start getting my foot in the door to eventually teach at the college level, as far as networking and meeting other individuals who were interested in higher education. And luckily I did, I applied and obviously got the job, and I've been working with Walden now for about 3 years. And while I was involved in that role, it was a great role, but it really didn't quite fit me. And so throughout that role, I tried to find ways in which I could add and still get a part of that community building that I was looking for and the giving back that I was looking for. And I was presented with some time to kind of do some professional development. And with that time, I created an employee engagement group, and I also became a part of our community building committee. And within that community building committee, I joined our United Way campaign and was able to help kind of guide my career more in the community giving aspect, which is where I had wanted to go, just by being affiliated with these different opportunities within the university. And then the position opened up for a military service specialist, and as my grandfather and uncle were both war veterans, my undergraduate was in political science. That area has always interested me. I applied for that position and subsequently got it. I've worked in this department now for just a little over a year, and I looked for opportunities again within this career to further advance myself, and I went back to school and got my master's degree, and now I have my master's in public policy, which I did obtain through Walden. And I have now been able to, in this role, take on some new challenges, which have involved presenting at a conference, like Lisa mentioned earlier. I've also been able to do some internal training and cultural training within our community at Walden for military culture, and that has been another way that I've been able to kind of give back along the way. And then we can go to the next slide, I think, Nicole.
Yes.
So I was asked to give some advice as to kind of how I moved myself through that process. And I guess the biggest advice I have is, don't be afraid to take risks. And when you do see an opportunity and you're going through those long lists of jobs that are out there on whatever search engine you're using, try to find an opportunity that you think might be right for you and then go for it. I've used my LinkedIn profile, and I also heavily utilize the Optimal Resume website. And with that, if you haven't checked it out yet, go and look at it because it's fantastic. You can put your top papers up there. You can put letters of recommendation on there. You can load up a cover letter, and you can load up your resume or your curriculum vitae. You can put all of that on there, and then it's a really easy way to share your e-portfolio or share the work that you've done throughout your education with potential employers. So what I also did is I took the link from that site and put it on my LinkedIn profile. So anybody who visits my LinkedIn profile can now access my website that I built using the Optimal Resume. And then when you do get time to do, when you do get called for an interview, just make sure that you're researching how your story fits into their mission. Make sure that you kind of do some research. I mean, we're all students, so we know how to do research. So research the company, research their mission, see how their values fit in with your values, and then I would just suggest using those as you're telling your story and making sure that your story fits into their mission to kind of draw yourself out and make yourself stand out a little bit more.
Excellent, Jen. Thank you very much. So with that, we're going to move on to Betsy and Betsy List. She is a PhD public health alum. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here on the live webinar, but she gave us permission to tell her story as well. So hers is kind of an unexpected career opportunity that came about. She enjoyed her position as a researcher at a children's hospital. I believe she's in Cincinnati. But her education at Walden and an open mind kind of led her to an unexpected career possibility. It's an opportunity that presented itself, and she found that her skills, education, she had a unique background of research, population health, education, were really the perfect fit for this position. And she had said that really becoming an instructor was never really a part of her plan when pursuing her doctoral program, but it really had to do with being at the right place at the right time. And really one of her professors during her doctoral program had always said, keep an open mind as you never know what opportunities can cross your path. And that's one phrase that she shared with me that really stuck in her mind from her program. And she always decided, I'm going to stay with that and keep an open mind. So as she moved through the program, she kept this open mind in her career path. And one day at work, she received an email advertising an assistant professor position with Xavier University, and it was actually with a new doctoral nursing program with a focus on population health, which really sparked her interest. She researched it more, investigated it more, and decided to go ahead and apply because her background and credentials were really a perfect fit. And she recently accepted this position, and she's starting it this fall. So kind of that brings me to talk a little bit about the unexpected serendipity of this position coming about, and then the interview process. So I continued to ask her questions about the interview. She said during the interview, because what I said, I don't think you have classroom teaching experience, so how did you really sell yourself in the interview? And she shared that with me. She was asked to give a 20-minute presentation to the search committee on educating future nurse leaders to work in interdisciplinary teams in population health. And she developed a presentation. She was also asked about her teaching experience, and she was very frank about it. The committee had already seen from her CV that she did not have teaching experience in the academic setting, and she was very transparent about that in the interview, but she did talk about similar teaching experience that she did have, and that she developed and taught clinical staff, continuing education programs, and parent education classes to the public, so in other contexts. She was also asked a question regarding accreditation and regulatory oversight within the context of nursing education. And she said, although she had not been involved in preparing accreditation reports, she does have experience with the process and documentation required to meet those external standards for specialized hospital designation awards. So she spoke about her experience in the context in similar activities, and she ended up landing the position. So it's both the how she sold herself in the interview and keeping that open mind, because you never know what type of career opportunities are going to cross your path. And then with that, we're going to go on to Krista Larson, who's going to share her story with us today. Krista.
All right, thanks. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
So okay, great, thank you. So I have probably a little bit of a different path that I took to get my doctorate in business administration. I actually started my undergraduate degree as in physics and mathematics, and then I have a master's degree in the atmospheric sciences. And I spent my very early part of my career thinking I was going to get into research, and I actually did research in the atmospheric sciences. But early on in my career, I found that I was less interested in the research, but I was more interested in applying my problem-solving skills toward managing projects. I had some really fantastic mentors very early in my career, who one individual in particular who kind of took me under his wing and gave me some opportunities to train up in project management under him. And I found that I really enjoyed it. It became something, an outlet for me to use my interest and my passion for solving problems, but in a way in which I wasn't doing my own research, but I was helping other investigators design their research projects and execute their research projects. So I actually spent about the first 8 or 9 years of my career actually managing research aircraft deployments all around the world. And I got to work with a whole spectrum of different individuals. But, you know, me being me and being interested in solving problems, after several years of that, I decided I wanted to find new challenges. And that's kind of the second theme that comes out. In addition to problem solving, I like to challenge myself. I like to challenge myself to step outside of my comfort zone and pursue new opportunities. So about 12 or 13 years ago, I kind of took a leap and I pivoted my career. I got the opportunity to apply for a position to become the project director for a large $80 million research project or acquisition project to acquire and modify an aircraft for research. And so I worked on that, and the team that I assembled, we were successful in delivering that, and I spent several years actually, and since then I have basically built a career for myself out of managing these large, complex projects that have multiple stakeholders, whether it's university representatives or government agencies. And these are typically multi-year, multi-million-dollar projects. But at the same time, I got more and more interested in leadership development and how do you build effective teams and how do you build effective organizations to deliver these big projects. And that eventually led me to Walden, to the Doctor of Business Administration program at Walden. And probably the biggest pivot or the biggest step out of your comfort zone move of my career, I was presented with the opportunity to pursue a research program, a research study, a qualitative research study looking at Medicaid fraud and abuse. And I had a wonderful committee member who challenged me when he agreed to serve on my committee. He said, well, what if you really stepped outside your comfort zone and you spent some time researching leadership strategies that are necessary to combat the problem of Medicaid fraud and abuse? And this is very different from what I've made my career out of, but the more I researched this, the more I researched the problem of Medicaid fraud and abuse and what appeared to be some of the circumstances that lead to this problem and the ramifications of this problem, the more I got intrigued. And so that's what I eventually did my research study in. I did a qualitative case study based on interviews I did in the state of Arizona. And as it says here on the slide, I was very gratified to find out in January of 2014 that I was the recipient of the Frank Gilly Award for the outstanding doctoral study. So I think the one piece of advice I would give to all of you is everybody has what I would call your true north. You have elements of your personality and who you are that are your core values and the things that are most representative of yourself. And what I have found is that my career is really, as many interesting twists and turns as it's taken, my career has always landed back on, and those are the two elements that always resonate as my true north. My true north is I love solving problems. And I love stepping out of my comfort zone and consistently finding opportunities where I'm challenged to pursue opportunities. And I'm challenged to work with new and different groups of individuals, individuals who may have different perspectives, different beliefs, different skill sets from my own. But I find that when I've gone back to my true north, when I've stayed true to my desire to stay true to these core values, I found that I've always been able to find and land on these really interesting and intriguing career opportunities, and it allows me to do my best work and to be most gratified in my career.
Terrific. What a great story.
Excellent, Krista. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista, and congratulations on that award. That's just so phenomenal.
Thank you.
Especially since you did it outside your career field. It's really huge accomplishment. So with that, now we are going to open it up to questions from our audience, and actually we have some. So I'm going to direct the first question to both Jen and to Krista. How have you found your LinkedIn profiles helpful? How have you used them, or how have you connected with people, or how have you found them helpful?
Jen, do you want to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Krista, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You can go ahead and go ahead, Jennifer, please.
So for me, I have kind of used my LinkedIn profile as my main brand. So if you were to go out to my LinkedIn profile, behind me, they have this new cool thing where you can put a picture across the top. I have a picture of the Constitution, kind of describes who I am. I love my political science background, my policy background. I've used it to my advantage to kind of put my brand out there, and really it enables you to give an explanation of who you are right away with the summary. So I've tried to use that to the best of my ability. I've used, if any of you are familiar with the Strengths Finders, I put those, my Strengths Finders findings, I guess, for lack of a better word, within that summary. So I think that those are really good descriptions of who you are. I like the True North that Krista mentioned. Actually, I'm still thinking about that, because a lot of those themes were the same things that were coming up when I would do a Strengths Finder. And so I wanted to make sure that I incorporated those in my LinkedIn. So I use those key things that kind of make me who I am, and I use those in my summary to make myself kind of stand out, and along with the other graphic things that you can do within LinkedIn. I think if you really learn the application itself, there's a lot of different ways that you can make it work for you.
Great. Krista?
Yeah, I really like what Jennifer just said. I do a lot of the same things. So sorry, I'm going to sound like I'm parodying a little bit. I use my LinkedIn profile for branding, just to kind of give a snapshot view of this is who I am, and these are the things I value, and these are my work experiences, and these are the things I bring to the table. It's really kind of the short bullet point summary of, it's kind of, I know the phrase, sometimes your elevator speech gets used, right? It's my elevator speech for, if you want to know what I bring to the table, what skill set I have that, your organization might benefit from. Here's a representation of that. The other thing I have found that's really valuable in LinkedIn is, I've been, now I'm going to date myself, I've been working professionally for, like 25 years, and I've worked on a number of different projects. And I've accumulated this, fairly good-sized base of colleagues and friends and contacts. And I have really found that the networking, being connected to people through LinkedIn is really, really helpful. And in fact, even more than I think, kind of promoting my own brand, it's a really good way I have found to stay in touch with a lot of colleagues. Everybody gets busy, and it can be really difficult I found to kind of keep in touch with colleagues, and over time. And so I like being able to be connected with my friends on LinkedIn. Sometimes we share each other private messages about, did you hear about this opportunity, or I'm looking for this type of candidate in this position. But also we share links to interesting articles, like, oh, did you read this leadership article? Or, oh, I understand you're working in Wyoming now. Here's a really cool article about that. So I find that the networking you can do through LinkedIn and networking in general is really, really important. I got my current position because of my network, my connections, individuals I had worked with years ago. So, yeah, I think the networking in LinkedIn is also a really important part of that tool that I've found really valuable.
That's excellent. Thank you.
So another question. Would you say that questions like tell me about yourself and an employer seeking to hear someone's career story is fairly typical in an interview context? Would you say that it might be tell me about yourself, it might be phrased in a different way, but do you find that that's a pretty commonly asked question, would you say? And that they'd like a response Nicole gave?
Yeah, I would say that it definitely is. I think that's usually the first question that they ask you when you first sit down. It's, okay, well, welcome. So tell me a little bit about yourself. And in my current position, I'm probably not unique to more seasoned career professionals, but as I'm kind of moving up now from, a position or into more of a position of leadership, being on the other side of it and seeing the questions that come in from interviewees, you get the answers from anything from their whole entire life story from birth on to, just the basic one that Lisa kind of gave as an example in the beginning. But I definitely think that that's usually the typical question that people get asked when they first sit down in an interview is like, they want to know a little bit about yourself. So I would say, Krista, has that been your experience?
Yeah, it has. Not so much recently from interviews, when I've been the interviewee, but in my position prior to my current job, it was a kind of a startup company, and we were doing lots of hiring, and so we did lots of interviews, and so that was a question we always asked. But I would say another one that I'm going to show my bias. I personally like to ask. It goes a little bit deeper than the question of tell us about yourself, which I agree with Jennifer, that does come up, and that's kind of always I think a kind of a standard leading question. But questions I like to ask, and I've been asked, and I now have co-opted, and I ask myself when I'm in an interview position, are wanting people to go a bit deeper and talk a bit more about their challenges and their successes. I served on a selection committee for the University of Wyoming several months ago, and one of the questions I always wanted to ask the candidates, and it's not so much to put them on the spot, but a good question I think to ask is, tell me about a time where you were challenged, and challenge in this context can mean where something didn't go as planned, or you didn't handle a situation as well as you might have. And it's not so much to put them on the spot, but it's also to kind of dig a little deeper into who they are as a person, because then the part B to that question is always, and how did you respond to the situation, and what did you learn from it? So I think a variant of the, like I said, tell me about yourself is kind of a, okay, what about this scenario? Where's a situation where, quite often in interviews, by nature you have to promote yourself. But I think what's also helpful, at least to me when I'm an interviewer, is, again, not putting people on the spot, but digging deeper and finding out, okay, adversity is, adverse consequences on jobs, that's just a part of being in the work world. How do you react to that? How do you respond to it? And what did you learn from it? And what I found is, anytime I've had candidates, sometimes have been like, no, everything was flawless, and this job went great, and I didn't do anything wrong, and I didn't learn anything from it. I always have like little warning bells that go off in my head a little bit, because it's a little bit telling to me for people to kind of want to expose themselves a little bit more. And again, it's not to catch them out, it's just to get into a deeper conversation about what are you learning about yourself and how are you growing as a professional in the workplace.
And I think too, kind of just to add to that just a little bit too, is, you know, that's kind of what I was saying before, when you're researching the company, those, you know, I would go into interviews with the mindset of, okay, you know, they're going to probably ask some of those behavioral interview questions, which is like the tell me about a time when questions.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that, if you've gone and you've researched the company, you could tie those in, you know, your experience with something that they're looking for, or with something that the company is known for. If you have that, if you've done that research, that would be a good way to tie that in to that challenge that you overcame, you know, such as a challenge that you guys, you know, you may experience in this company, kind of a thing. In my own personal experience, I've used that. In fact, I used that with the military service position. I did some research on the different GI Bills, so I could speak to those when I was, you know, discussing challenges and opportunities when I was coming to that position.
Yeah, I really like that, and I guess I don't mean to belabor the question, but it's a really good one. And I think the other thing I've learned over the course of both being an interviewer and an interviewee is to kind of piggyback on what Jennifer was just saying. I think when you go into interviews, it's really important to, what I have found is it's important to listen to the questions that you're being asked. It tells you a lot about the organization. Mm-hmm. And the thing I found is that if you're in the position of being the one who's being interviewed, you can't interview them as much as they're interviewing you, but you can, if you're really listening to the questions you're being asked and follow-up questions that you're getting. I found that you can also get a feel for whether or not you're a good fit. You know, do you fit in with the culture? You know, do you think your answers are resonating? You know, or do the questions seem kind of rote? I'm not sure if I'm saying this very well, but I think that active listening during the interview process is also important, because, like I said, you can get a sense of if you're going to be a good fit, and if you feel comfortable with the individuals that you're interviewing, and if you might be a good fit for the position and for the culture within the organization.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, thank you. What great responses. Okay, Krista, I'm going to throw you the floor with this next one. So, how do you align your career goals to make the switch from industry to academia? Because that might have come up. I mean, you could have been asked, you know, so why did you pursue your DBA? Why did you, you know, rather than an MBA, for example?
I actually started off looking at MBA programs, and for purely personal reasons, I wound up looking at Walden because my sons, I had two boys, they were much younger at the time, and I really didn't feel like I could spare the time to be at a bricks and mortar university. But the more I started looking into MBA programs, then I literally kind of stumbled upon the doctoral program, the DBA program. And Walden was one of the only universities I found that actually had a doctoral level program in leadership in an online forum. And so the more I started researching the program and the course offerings, you know, it was just kind of an aha moment where it was like, this is a really good fit for what I want to do. And to me, it was kind of the best of both worlds. Because I came in from a purely scientific and technical background. I kind of had to start at square one when I started the DBA program. So I didn't have an MBA, so I didn't fast track to a lot of the later courses. I took a lot of the earlier courses, which I think were roughly equivalent with some of the MBA programs. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. I got the grounding in business principles that I'd kind of discovered, you know, as I moved more and more into executive and senior level leadership. I realized that there were some areas of my education that were just lacking. So I got that fundamental academic training in business courses, but then I got to go a step beyond. I got to focus on what I was interested in, which was leadership and organizational development. And then I got to take that a step further, even once I'd done my coursework, and do my research in something in a field that was really interesting to me. So I'm not sure if I'm getting too far afield from the question. Feel free to redirect me if I'm not answering it. But that's why I wound up making the choices that I did. A lot of it was I realized that I needed more training, I think, to help me be a more effective manager and leader. And I had at the institution where I spent the first 20 years of my career, they gave me the opportunity to go through 2 leadership training programs. And I just found by the time I did the second one, which was an executive leadership program, that I loved it. I was very passionate about leadership theory and studying organizational behaviors and organizational development. And so going on and doing doing a DBA didn't really seem so far afield, you know, from my earlier academic degrees.
Excellent. And Krista, just to follow up to that, did Residency Network help your career at all? The opportunity to meet with other Walden students in person?
You know, it didn't help from a career standpoint. I'm not trying to sound negative, because, like I said, my professional network is what has helped me land my current position. But residencies, I can't say enough about them just because of the opportunity to meet fellow students. In fact, I still do Google Hangouts with like a good friend of mine who we walked through graduation. We got hooded in the same ceremony. One of my best friends is about to finish the DBA program, and we met in a class online, but then we did one of our residencies together, and that just solidified our friendship. And so I would say what the residencies really drove home with me was an opportunity to, in a very intense fashion, over several days, not only have an opportunity to interface with the faculty and get a lot of one-on-one assistance, but to meet all of my fellow students. And, you know, even, you know, I got to put, you know, faces with the names of like, oh my gosh, you know, I took this DDBA course X number with you, and I'm actually meeting you. And we were at various points in the program, but we could share our successes and failures, and we could give each other tips. And like I said, those have just become connections that I still have in my network. And a piece of advice I would give to anyone who's in a doctoral or PhD program is network, not just with the faculty and not just with career services and the library staff. All of the support services at Walden are fantastic, but networking with your fellow students, that was huge for me, because there were points when I was finishing my dissertation where, as my husband would tell you, you know, you have moments of doubt because you're working on it so much. My friends in the program helped enormously. You know, I had friends who would read chapters for me, and they would give me feedback, and we would help each other with papers. And a lot of that was just solidified in the residencies as well, and I still stay in touch with a lot of these people.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we're just about to wrap up our questions. I have one last one for Nicole. Actually, it's a two-part question. How can I get help with my resume, and how can I get help with marketing myself?
Okay, excellent. Well, just come over to Career Services. So we have a whole team of advisors here, and we work in several ways. You'll definitely want to visit our website. For those of you not familiar with Career Services, it's careercenter.waldenu.edu. And we have a variety of resources. We offer one-on-one phone appointments, and you can schedule through your portal. We offer resources in the form of short videos, longer webinars, articles. We have a blog. We have a Facebook page. We have a LinkedIn group that we encourage you to join. So we really have a variety of resources that hopefully meet you all 24/7 on the website. And also we offer smaller webinars called cafes. They're shorter 30 to 45-minute ones every month. And we have recordings of those as well. So we also do resume critiques, and we have, for those of you interested in optimal resume, because I know I mentioned it and Jennifer as well did a nice pitch for us, you really want to go to our website, and we have video tutorials, also PDF tutorials of how to use all of the modules and get set up with optimal. So thank you for that, and definitely utilize Career Services.
Excellent, thank you. So I would like to thank Jen and Krista so much for sharing their wonderful career stories. They were so rich and just such great answers to our questions. And so what's interesting right now is the Career Services Center is also telling our story. So we've been undergoing what is called a co-curricular review for the last 3 years. We've been doing this since 2012, and we've produced a lengthy report studying what we offer to students and what our most used resources are. And the goal for doing this type of review is to engage in continuous improvement. We just want to serve you better and as best we can. So basically, we have two external reviewers that are going to be visiting us here in Minneapolis in a couple weeks. And so we are looking to recruit students and alumni who would be willing to share their ideas for improving the Career Services Center. So if this interests you, it's going to be Tuesday, August 12th from 3:30 to 4:15 Central. So it will be a conference call where you will be calling a toll-free number and talking to our two external reviewers. They will be the only ones talking to you on the call. There will not be Career Services staff present. We want this to be a very objective focus group and a very open and free discussion. And so we're asking that students and alumni share their ideas for improving our center and feedback that you might want to share on our current offerings as well. So if you're interested, please email me, Lisa, Lisa.cook, C-O-O-K, @waldenu.edu, and I will respond with that conference call-in number and other logistical information. So if you'd like to help improve the center as part of your social change mission, we would really appreciate your participation. So thank you very much.
Yeah, great opportunity to share and give back and give your feedback. So excellent opportunity. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, we put together some resources, and again, that we used in this webinar, and also just for you to refer to, great articles from Harvard Business Review, from Forbes, from Quintessential Careers on really successful storytelling and how to tell a great story in a career context. No need to write them down because we are archiving this on our website. And again, we definitely invite you to view and visit our new and improved website, careercenter.waldenu.edu, where we have all of those resources that I mentioned earlier. And of course, we also, as an online university, definitely encourage you to connect with us in the way that is, feasible and easy for you, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or looking at our blog or just emailing us or joining the webinars, whatever works for you. But we encourage you to stay in touch and, share your career stories as you move along. And we'd like to end the webinar with this final thought.
Can I say one thing before you
do?
Go
ahead.
Can you go back to my slide?
Yes,
please.
Absolutely.
Okay, a very diligent student pointed out to me that Tuesday is August 11th. So thank you very much for that person who caught that typo of mine. So we are talking about Tuesday, August 11th from 3:30 to 4:15. So I just want to say thank you very much, John, for catching that for us. So great. Tuesday, August 11th. Thank you.
Great, Lisa.
Please email me if you're interested for joining us Tuesday.
You can email her right now, as a matter of fact.
Yes, please do. I'm waiting at my computer for your response.
And a great opportunity for you all to share.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. So after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. This is a quote from Philip Pullman.